Today I've got a review of the Behmor Connected by Behmor, and this is a little, well, not little, it's a huge instruction book that comes with it. So, very thorough. Nice job, Behmor. And it is the updated model of the Brazen Plus, which is currently my favorite auto drip coffee maker in existence. I'll show you that a little bit later on, but first let's just go over what is different about the Behmor Connected versus the Brazen Plus. Well, particularly there is only one button, well, two buttons I should say. This is just for the Wi-Fi connectivity. This is going to integrate with your smartphone, so that's the major difference here. So really, if you wanted to, you could just press this button and start brewing with the Behmor Connected, but that would kind of defeat the whole purpose of buying this machine, because it's meant to be used with your smartphone, as I already mentioned. So the process is pretty simple, straightforward. I think they did a nice job with the app, and I'll give you a demo of that later. But basically you go in and you can adjust your temperature from directly in the app, as well as your pre-infusion or bloom time. So those were features that the Brazen Plus already had, but this makes it a little bit simpler because you don't have to fidget around with a bunch of buttons, up arrows and down arrows, adjusting things, and it's saved into the app so you can craft your own brews depending on the different coffee you use. So if you want to save certain settings for, say, a light roast single origin that you use, and you want to quickly switch to something that's different in terms of temperature and pre-infusion time for, say, a blend of dark roast coffee, then this allows you to do so easily. So that's kind of the beauty behind the app. One thing I should mention is, at the time of this video, the app does not offer a programmable timer feature, which I was frankly a little bit surprised and shocked by. I know that Todd from Behmor told me that they are working on a whole bunch of things with the app, so to give them a little bit of breathing room, and I will update this review if that's no longer the case. So as soon as they do have the timer integrated, which I know they plan to do, and I'll make sure to update this video with a little note. So let's go over what's the same. We still have this large stainless steel reservoir here. There is still the little catch filter to get out any potential, well, I don't know what would end up in your coffee, but it's been known to happen. It's got, let's see if you can see this here. It's got our same calibration line marking, and then 6 cups and 8 cups. So that's not any different. And it just goes on like that. Still lots of condensation, as you can see, which I thought was a downside from the previous model, but it's not really anything you can do about that. And really, it's not worth complaining about if the water is going to be hot enough. Filter basket is exactly the same as far as I can tell, flat. Comes with the permanent filter, also the same. Carafe is exactly the same too. Comes on and off like that. And then, as I mentioned before, the only other difference is this very illuminated button, which does become a nuisance if you're, say, trying to sleep in your kitchen, which I don't think anybody tries to do, but it's kind of like a night light. Let's just say that. It's very bright, and in my small apartment, I definitely notice it. And like I said before, you can just activate this brewer by pressing the button. The lights indicate different things. I haven't found it to be very intuitive. I know when my fiance first used it, she had to send me a text message asking what the hell the orange light meant when it was pressed, and that just means that the water's heating up. So again, you're going to want to use this brewer with your app. There's really not much point in using it if you're not going to use the integrated smartphone app. And it is available for both iOS and Android devices. So hopefully it works just as well for the Android version as it does for the iOS version, which is what I use. Okay, so let's do a brew demo real quick. I like to use paper filters. So first things first, I'll just take out the brew basket, remove the permanent filter, and still has its shape somewhat intact. You want to make sure that you store these in a container where it will keep the shape intact, because I have found that when you're using at least 6 cups of coffee worth, sometimes it gets close to overflow. So you'll want to make sure, once again, that the paper filter is intact. So let's just set that aside. Now, in their little manual, they've got a helpful chart for determining your ratio based off of the SCAA's recommendation of a golden cup, quote unquote. So I'm just gonna do 6 cups worth here. So for 6 cups of coffee, they recommend 47 grams. So helpful to have a gram scale. If you're using a machine like this, you're already probably a coffee snob like me. So 47 grams of coffee. Okay, good enough. Okay, so let's just dump the coffee carefully into the filter basket. Give it a little shake, a flat bed, and then that just goes right under the shower head. Slides in like that. Let's make sure our carafe is empty. We'll give it a little rinse. What lots of people don't know is that if you want to keep your coffee nice and hot in a thermal carafe, you should preheat it with some hot water, preferably boiling water, for about 10 minutes before brewing. And actually, well, since it takes a long time to really heat up the water in this brewer, you might have enough time to let your carafe sit for a good not 5 minutes, but at least a few minutes to preheat. In other words, it will stay hotter for longer. Okay, next step, add the water to the 6 mark. Voila. Okay, next I'm going to show you how the app works. Alright, so here's a look inside the app. This is the iOS version. And you can see that I've named mine to, well, you guessed it, Benji's Behmor. And you just tap on that. It's a pretty straightforward interface. Let's take a look at the menu here. You can set a quick start, so choose 6 or 8 cups. Those are your only options. And then they've got a little reference at the top of the screen. So 6 cups is 10 tablespoons or 47 grams. 8 cups is 14 tablespoons or 66 grams. So that is pretty handy. 6 cups is what we would select here, and then you hit that top right arrow, and then you get to adjust your brew temperature. So I'm using a medium roast, so I think I'm going to go with 202. And then you can also adjust the soak, the pre-soak, or the bloom, pre-infusion, whatever you want to call it. Since these are older beans, I can reduce this down to 15 seconds, and that's good. And then you can hit set. So it says your quick start selection has been set. So that's the quick start, I guess, is just for when you press that button on the coffee maker itself. So those are going to be the default settings, in other words. So that wasn't super straightforward, but I know that they're still working on the app here. Let's just explore the other part of the menu here. Settings. So you can change the name at the top. Here's some instructions for how to clean. And then it has a clean cycle. So what they're telling you to basically do is use a mix of cold water and coffee maker cleaner. They don't recommend a particular brand. I use Kafitza. I think that's how you pronounce it, which is good stuff. So I guess you can run a cleaning cycle just like you would a normal brew. This is something that I'm a little surprised they kind of had hidden in the app, and that's the calibration. So especially if you live at high altitude, you'll want to calibrate your brewer. But regardless, this is something you'll want to do before you start using it. So basically, I showed you the calibration line in the coffee maker's reservoir, and that is for setting the boiling point depending on where you are located. So this is important for the temperature setting. If you're, say, at high altitude, your boiling point is going to be much lower temperature. So it's important to calibrate for that. So this will walk you through that. And then you can register your device, firmware update, and then you'll want to set up your network, which this will walk you through in the beginning. So all that is a little bit more complicated, but they've got some tips here. Alright, so let's show you the actual brewing element to this. So we're going to just want to tap on the plus, and you have three options. You have brew, buzz, and craft. Craft, you can create your own settings. So say that you want to do something new, experiment with a different setting than you're normally using. Do 6 cups, again 202. We'll do that same pre-soak, and then you hit plus, and that will set your brew and get it started. Well, almost get it started. So it says it's ready to go. You hit start brew, and then it will check to see if you've added water. If you have, you just go ahead and hit yes. So it says what stage the coffee maker is currently on. It's heating, as indicated by the orange on the coffee maker itself, which I showed you earlier. So let's stop that for now. Hello, stop. Okay, there it goes. So that was the craft setting again. Let's talk about the other settings. So we have buzz as another option. So this is, I think, something that is clearly still in development, but sponsored brews. So I guess these are preset recipes, if you will, for different types of coffee. And I'm not sure if only the folks at Behmor have control over what these are going to be, but it's kind of already preset. I guess you would just choose the number of cups, and then it's going to already have the temperature and pre-infusion setting set for you. So less thinking. And then finally there's just the brew option. So it will ask you if your beans are packaged, home roasted, or ground within the last 3 days. So I guess this is just to determine, I don't know what the point of asking this is. So bulk, whole bean, or pre-ground versus fresh. I guess this is just to adjust the pre-infusion time. I guess the idea behind it is that you're going to want to have a longer pre-infusion time for fresher coffee. So this is Behmor's way of determining how fresh your coffee is. And the roast level, I would imagine that for a light roast, they're just going to automatically set a higher temperature. Medium roast, they're going to go a little bit lower, and then dark, they're going to go even lower than that. So it's just to take the guesswork out of how you should set your brew. So the coffee is ready as indicated by the green light, and if you have your notifications set up on your app, then that will also tell you that the coffee is ready. So let's see how hot this coffee is. It's been sitting for about 15 minutes. So I'm just gonna pour. So 176.5. So that's above drinking temperature in my opinion. So nice and hot, and the carafe wasn't even preheated. So thumbs up in that regard. And for 6 cups of coffee, total brew time was about 10 minutes. Just over 10 minutes. So that was with a 45-second pre-soak time. So keep that in mind. 6 cups is going to take you at least 9 minutes to brew. So that's where the delay brew feature can come in handy. You can get your water heated up before you roll out of bed to grind your coffee and add it to the coffee maker. Here's a side-by-side comparison of the Brazen Plus, the former model, and the Behmor Connected. You can see that they're virtually the same, the exception of the 8 buttons on the Brazen Plus versus the 2, and one of which is the only one that you actually use. So this is basically app integration. This is set it on here, and it does take a little bit of pressing around. You can get a quick start going by just pressing start with the Brazen Plus. It will remember your default settings, but as far as switching between different coffees and experimenting with different bloom times and water temperatures, I would say that the Brazen Plus is a bit more of a pain in that regard. I like working with the app better. It's way quicker. The only extra feature that the Behmor Connected has is that it has that delay brew feature where you'd heat up the water and then brew later, whereas the Brazen Plus does not have that feature, but currently it does have, over the Behmor Connected, it has the brew timer, so you can set the time to wake up to coffee. So I think the Behmor Connected is going to have that in the future, but for now, if you're looking for an SCAA certified coffee maker that has a programmable timer, you would go with the Brazen Plus. Behmor Connected is not SCAA certified yet at the time of this review. They're working on it, and I'm pretty confident that they'll get it, but keep that in mind, and also that it does not yet have a programmable timer, but they're going to be adding that feature with firmware updates through the app. So that's pretty cool. So as they add more features in the future, you're not going to have to buy a whole new unit. You can just stick to your Behmor Connected and update it through the app. So I hope I covered everything there. Let me just go over who I think the Behmor Connected is for. I think it's for the coffee geek that doesn't necessarily have the time to fidget around with pour over every day. Sometimes would want a quick cup, but still wants to leave room for experimentation with water temperature and pre-infusion time. It's also good for people who live at high altitude. I should say that both of these coffee makers are good for that because you can calibrate the boiling point. The stainless steel reservoirs are also a huge plus to the Behmor coffee makers. I don't think any other auto drip coffee maker out there has something like that, and I know lots of Americans and people in general are trying to, get away from their dependence on plastic. It is not very good for you, especially when combined with hot water, BPA free or not. People want minimal plastic, and this is a step in the right direction in that regard. In terms of ease of use, the Behmor Connected I think is an improvement over the Brazen Plus. Slightly complicated with the buttons, not painstakingly complicated, but I think that the app is intuitive, and to those who say that it doesn't, I remember seeing a comment on Seattle Coffee Year's video about the Behmor Connected, and somebody was like, this solves a problem that doesn't exist. I actually don't think that that's true. I think that there are a lot of people who want that kind of programmable feature where they can wake up in the morning and have the hot water ready and still use fresh coffee. I think that does serve a need. I know one of my major qualms with a programmable timer in my coffee maker in the past was that I simply did not want to use coffee that had been ground the night before. So in that sense, it solves that issue, and then it also solves the issue of complicatedness. It's easier to use through the app. This is a lot of adjustments you have to make if you're going to go through different settings, and people don't want to have to do that every time. So it's a question of whether you want to open an app or not. So if you're glued to your phone already, then by all means go with the Behmor Connected over the Brazen Plus. If you're trying to limit your dependency on your smartphone, then definitely stay away from it. I know that I already have enough distractions in my own personal life that I don't want to have to use an app for everything, especially the ritual of making coffee. But that's not knocking on this at all. I do think it's an improvement over the predecessor, and I'll probably keep it, quite honestly, and give this away to a friend. The Brazen Plus, that is. So there you have it. That is Behmor's Connected Brewer. If you have any questions, leave it below in the comment section, and as always, feel free to like this if you like this review, and subscribe to the channel. I've got more coffee maker reviews and coffee reviews and basically anything under the sun when it comes to coffee. So thanks so much for watching, and until next time.